My name is Terrence Markin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Graphene Council, the largest community in the world for graphene producers, researchers, application developers, and end users. We have hosted the Graphene in Healthcare and Medical Applications Conference Series, and the video you are about to watch is from that series. So we're really happy to have these two experts with us to give yet another aspect on the antimicrobial behavior of graphene, and that includes in graphene face masks, which I personally use and found to be exceptionally effective. And we've also done testing as the Graphene Council on some of these materials. So Thanuja, do you want to go ahead and kick it off?
Yeah, thank you very much, Terrence. So yes, I will start with a brief introduction to Versarien, and then walk you through some of the work that we have done with graphene-based antimicrobial coatings. And then at the end, Steve will give you a brief overview of Bioside legislation, which sits behind all these things. To talk about Versarien, we are a company specialized in advanced materials and taking technology out of the universities to real-world applications, real-world. So during the last few years, we have acquired different companies and spin-outs from different universities, and also we have expanded out of globally out of the UK, in the USA, South Korea, and Europe. Our UK R&D is mainly based in the two graphene centers of excellence at the University of Manchester and the University of Cambridge. So we have two dedicated research teams based in Graphene Engineering and Innovation Center and one based in Cambridge Graphene Center. Also, we have strong links and collaborations with the other universities all over the UK by funding different PhD students and researchers on various different projects. So the range of graphene materials that we produce varies from powders to graphene inks and dispersions. Nani that you can see here is one of our few layer graphene powder material. Having graphene as a powder enables us to incorporate it in and combine it with other advanced materials and develop composite with advanced properties. Graphene covers the range of graphene inks and dispersions that we develop, which can be used as coatings. So these coatings bring multifunctionalities such as fire retardation, UV protection, thermal conductivity, and electrical conductivity. So it enables us to use these coatings and inks in different applications such as energy storage, healthcare applications, consumer discretionary, and information technology. On the other hand, our partner in Spain, Nanomat, they take one step further and combine the graphene materials with other different nanomaterials, such as metal and metal oxide nanoparticles. So these hybrid materials give new and unique properties to the graphene, which we often use to boost catalytic properties, magnetic properties, and energy storage properties. Especially in this talk, we are going to focus how we have used the graphene and metal hybrid nanomaterials as antimicrobial coatings in our work. Certifications. So certifications are important because graphene is a relatively new material. So being supported by different standards and certifications are significantly important both for us and our customers. Versarien is the world's only company to pass the verified graphene producer program, and this was administered by Graphene Council and with independent testing at National Physical Laboratory in UK. Also, we are both UK and EU REACH registered, which gives us the capability to manufacture and export graphene at 1 to 10 tons per year. So looking at the antimicrobial coating market, there are several research reports that suggest the fast growth of this market in the next 5 to 6 years, especially in USA and Europe, and covering healthcare applications and indoor air quality applications. You can see here, silver-based coatings take a significant space in the market value, although they have been phased out in UK and European market, but still they're in the US market. So we can discuss this further in Bioside legislation slides. Two key factors that is driving the growth of this market is, of course, the current COVID-19 pandemic situation, and also the increased resistance of microbes towards the antibiotics. So you can see here different applications, medical devices, air conditioning and ventilation systems, and sanitary facilities such as hospitals and kitchen. And also food processing and packaging is one of the upcoming applications, also antimicrobial textiles. SARS-CoV-2 testing, this was mainly driven by the current COVID-19 pandemic that we are living in. So we have tested 2 of our hybrid materials against the virus, and these studies were done in collaboration with Ankara University in Turkey in their biosafety level 3 labs. So basically we take the powder material and suspend it in phosphate buffer solution, and then mix the SARS-CoV-2 virus in it. Then we take the filtrate and transfect to Vero E6 cells. As you can see here in the results, one of our hybrid materials shows 4 log reduction, that means 99.99 viral inhibition, but with some cytotoxicity. The second hybrid material that we used shows log 2 reduction, that means 99% viral inhibition with no cytotoxicity. So with this promising results, we are using this technology now to develop some real-world application as thermoplastic antimicrobial coatings. The device that you can see here called Airway Medical Suction Unit, AMSU, it is a portable suction unit that you can use for clearing of airways in emergency and clinical conditions. So this device can replace the current technology which is available in the market. So Versarien is not only going to develop this device, but also place the antimicrobial outer surface coating on the device. So it is going to give some extra level of safety when we are using this unit in areas where sanitization facilities or sterilization conditions are not optimal. Here, not only the antimicrobial properties of the coating which is important, but also the optical transparency, because you need to see the liquid which is inside the device. So we had to do a lot of optimization here to combine both properties in the coating. And here you can see the coated plastic discs which we use later in the antimicrobial tests. They are transparent. So then we go into the testing following the ISO 22196 standard. We have tested this coated test discs against appropriate Staphylococcus aureus and E. coli and bacteriophage MS2 strains. Staphylococcus aureus is a gram-positive bacteria which is causing a wide variety of clinical diseases. E. coli is a gram-negative bacteria, and MS2 is a RNA virus which has also been proposed as a surrogate for SARS-CoV-2. Here you can see the results. Both our graphene and graphene metal hybrid shows a significant reduction of colony forming units, except E. coli here on graphene, which we will discuss later in the slides. And these are our 24-hour results. So in order to test the effectiveness of the active ingredient, we diluted the active ingredient or decreased the dosing 10 times, but still you can see 99.99, that means 4 log reduction in both of these 2 bacterial strains. And also we reduced the test time from 24 hours to 1 hour with 10 times less dosing. Still, you can see log2 reduction. So next stages of this study includes testing the life cycle and the durability of the coating, and also testing the effectiveness against a wide variety of microbial species. Finally, going a little bit into details of the mechanism, bactericidal activity from graphene can happen in few different ways. So if the graphene material surface is negatively charged, the negatively charged bacteria can repel the graphene material, so there's no effective adherence and attachment to the surface. And also this graphene materials or the flakes can wrap the bacteria, preventing it accessing the nutrients. The other two mechanisms are membrane stress, that means damaging the cell membrane of the bacteria, and oxidative stress, releasing reactive oxygen species, which can disintegrate the cell structure, internal cell structures. Surprisingly and interestingly, graphene materials can promote the bacteria activity as well. So this all depends on the physical, chemical, electrical, and structural properties of the graphene material that you're going to use. For example, if the surface of the graphene material is positively charged, the negatively charged bacteria attract to the surface and get adhered. And then the graphene material can act as an electron donor or electron acceptor and promote the metabolic pathways of bacteria. So this is going to promote the biofilm formation. So this is proof that we can't use any graphene material and expect to kill any microbial species. So I think that after this, okay. Then to talk about the metal nanoparticles, for example, as we have in graphene metal nanoparticle hybrids, the most active ingredient here is the metal species. So release of heavy metal ions can happen into the cells, into the cell, damaging the DNA and protein. And also it can cause damages to the cell wall. And also the generation of reactive oxygen species can damage the internal cell structure. So altogether, break the cell structure and prevent the biofilm formation. This is more like a chemical interaction than a physical inhibition of microbial growth. Okay, so I think from here on, Steve will give you the overview. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, as you've seen by now, so we've got a few candidates of graphene metal nanoparticle hybrids that we're looking to take to the next stage and look to potentially commercialize in some different products. So the challenge we're now facing is looking at a minefield of regulation that sits behind any biocide material which is acting in a chemical fashion. So if we have a material which is acting purely physically, there's no regulation. But in the case of some chemical interaction and a chemical mechanism of attack to the bacteria or viruses, then the European area and the UK and other territories are applying what we call the Biocide Product Regulation, BPR. And that's enforced in Europe by ECHA, European Chemicals Agency. In the UK, we have this Health and Safety Executive. And in doing this presentation, actually, we looked into the US regulations as well. And obviously governed by the EPA is the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide and Rodenticide Act. And biocide regulation is really becoming more prevalent across the world, and usually it governs anything from agricultural pesticides, skin disinfectants, and in Europe we have biocides which are categorized into 22 different divisions across 4 sectors. And so things including anti-fouling coatings, as I say, skin disinfectants, wood preservatives are all covered by biocide legislation. So if you want to start manufacturing and commercializing such a product, then your material must be registered as an active substance. So if you go to the next slide, Thanuja. So this is a very lengthy process which can take many, many years. Obviously, biocides are designed to kill living organisms, and so you must be very sure that there's going to be no harm to humans and to the environment. And if there's an existing active substance registration, that's great. You can, similar to REACH registration, you can buy a letter of access, and you could potentially obtain the grace period, so you can start manufacturing biocidal products. In the case of a material not being registered, you will have to go down the new active substance registration route. And again, that involves doing a lot of safety and toxicological testing of your materials. And if at any stage during that testing phase, which could last for anything up to 5 years or more, then your substance can be disapproved and you have to take that off the market. If you do get an approved active substance, you can then safely take that into biocidal products, and you can apply for approval of these products. And again, if at any stage there are safety concerns, or for whatever reason the approval has been cancelled, you've got to take those products off the market. So it's a very risky process, very time consuming and very expensive process. So in terms of the costs of getting full approval, you could be looking at several $1 million. And so it's not something we're taking lightly, and it's not something that we are looking to enter straight away. But once we're sure of the right candidates that we want to take forward, then we will potentially go through an application of this biocide legislation. So if you go to the next slide. So in summary, I think we've only got a few minutes left. For those of you that might be members of Materials World magazine, so we recently featured in an article relating to graphene and 2D materials in medical applications and what else it can do. So beyond what we talked about today, but we also go into discussing about biosensors, surveillance and detection, and also prevention of harmful viruses and diseases. And obviously, Terence has already mentioned some work we've been doing on graphene face masks that we didn't include in this talk, but happy to take any questions on those if anyone has any further questions. Unfortunately, we have to be a paid member to actually access this article, so we're not allowed to offer it for free. But if anyone is a member, as I say, you can log in and take a look at that article. I think that's it, Thanuja. We're, as I say, happy to take any questions. And yeah, please feel free to reach out to us by email or visit our webpage and contact us through there.
Well, Thanuja and Steve, thank you both for your presentation. It's obviously a very exciting area for biocidals and antibacterial agents. Everybody knows, of course, of the challenges, especially in healthcare environments, in hospitals where people are getting hospital-acquired infections and such. So that's not an issue that's gone away. Just to ask some general questions, and one of the most obvious one would be, agents like silver, which you've mentioned, are being phased out, but you are creating graphene metallic hybrids, it seems, and it's very interesting. I have two questions that just kind of leave open discussion for your reply. Were you surprised by the fact that you saw graphene can be both conducive to the growth of the bacterium as well as harmful to it? And then what role is the graphene playing in the metallic hybrids? Is the metal doing most of the biocidal effect, or is it a combination? And what makes it different than using graphene by itself?
Yeah, so I should just point out that silver itself is not being phased out, but there's things like silver nanoparticles, which are being phased out in Europe and possibly will be in the UK. So in terms of these mechanisms, so the graphene that we've used as the kind of control sample, that's a non-functionalized, it's not graphene oxide, so it's got very little oxygen content. So there possibly will be different results if you were to use graphene oxide against the same bacteria or fungus. So mechanism not always that clear, whether it's purely physical from the graphene or whether there possibly could be some edge functionalities that could be interacting with some of these species. That's something that needs a lot more work and probably funding a PhD to really look into the exact mechanism. So we think, because we're seeing much better performance from these hybrids, that most of the work is coming from the the metal nanoparticle, and the reason, and possibly that, yeah, there is a enhanced synergy because of the graphene providing a platform. So we know that when we synthesize these materials, the graphene is actually preventing these nanoparticles from getting too large, so we can preserve the size of these nanoparticles, which potentially makes them more effective as antiviral agents. But yeah, as Thanuja pointed out, I think, you know, we've got to do a lot more work in terms of seeing how broad these antivirals, antimicrobials will be effective against, and also looking at the longevity. So, of course, in most of these cases, the metal nanoparticle is giving away metal ions, which obviously that means some of your metals can be used up over time. But with our technology, we've also got the possibility to do multiple types of nanoparticle. So we could put some photocatalytic nanoparticles, as well as something like silver, which gets used up over time. That all depends on the application and the customer requirements as to how effective and long lasting these things need to be. And I should say, yeah, we're also looking at other avenues where we want to avoid metals completely, and we're working with some other partners to look at covalent functionalization of graphene with different groups for again, that connecting different mechanisms against these things. So yeah, it's very, very interesting topic. Sort of our first investigation and foray into kind of biomaterials and biosciences. So yeah, we're learning a lot as we go.
Interesting. And have you done some testing to compare the effectiveness? I know you mentioned Thanuja, you mentioned a 4-log improvement. I mean, how does that compare to, let's say, commonly used biocidals? Is it as effective, more effective? How does it compare?
I think we have if I go back to the here. So here we have not used any comparative study using currently available Bioside component. It's just testing our own materials, how much log reduction we can get with our own hybrid materials.
Understood. Excellent. And for either of you, what's always interesting, of course, is what can we do with these materials? But then, as we've focused on in some of the presentations today, you know, what's the business case? Steve, you mentioned, you know, the very long approval process, et cetera. How do you guys? What's your roadmap for what you want to do with this? Are you looking to work with a partner organization that would then, you know, license or use this technology, or are you looking at developing maybe some of your own products to bring to market? If that's something you're able to share, what do you see as your roadmap for using graphene for this particular application?
Yeah, I think we're very open to. Again, it's very application specific. So there could be cases, for example, maybe in ventilation systems where regulation is not so stringent. You're not going to put these things in contact with humans or on the skin. So yeah, we're still open and we're still looking at different avenues. And as I say, different markets have different tolerance to some materials. And so it could be that for us, we need to look more to the US, where some of these other nanoparticles are already registered. But yeah, as I say, we don't want to. It's a risky process, and much like the REACH registration, where if you've got a group of companies that are wanting to register the same material as an active substance, you can share those costs. And so, potentially there are others out there that are working on such hybrid materials who might eventually register and could share some of those costs with us, because, as I say, it is an expensive process. There are not generally that many new biocides and active substances coming to the market every year. It's kind of.
I think that's an excellent point, because the REACH consortium for the registration of graphene materials, I think one could confidently say that was a very successful approach, where multiple companies work together on that registration. It is also important to note that approach of working together in registering a material from more than one company is also applicable in the US under EPA and TSCA, although it's very rarely used. we did interact directly with EPA and ask about that approach, and that is certainly an option as well, so that companies can defray some of the costs going it alone. There are two more questions. I think we have time for the questions before we wrap up today. You didn't focus on the face masks. I understand we weren't talking about that, but I did get a question about it. And just the use of graphene in the face mask, how that's applied. And because we did do testing, we can talk about the effectiveness of the filtration of those masks. But do you want to just speak to the graphene in the face mask, how that's used and how it's effective?
Yeah, so I mean, we apply. I don't know if Thanuja, if there's some extra slides on the face mask.
Yeah, I will.
We thought it might come up, Terence, so we had a couple of slides. But essentially, yeah, we've got graphene as part of the outer layer of the face mask. And we did some work. We had testing against antiviral and antibacterial species. We showed that actually there is some, it's not amazing, but there is some inhibition of SARS-CoV-2 on these masks as well. But as I say, you cannot actually sell this as a product that is an antiviral product or antimicrobial product, because graphene is not a registered active substance.
Right.
And also, we're not quite sure on the mechanism, whether it's a physical mechanism, it's just either absorbing or repelling these particles through its surface charge. So yeah, we basically, the graphene is there for other benefits that it brings in terms of thermal comfort and anti-static properties that it brings to the mask. Yeah. So yeah, we've now got this mask, and we've gone through several rounds of certification and testing. We have the CE mark. We now have it certified as RD, which it means it's reusable, and we have a cleaning process that can be used for 10 times. So the mask is not thrown away after one use. It can be used 10 times, and it's been used in a certain clogging test against dolomite dust, which means it can be worn for more than one shift per day. So it has use for not just for the general public, but mainly for industrial use. So it's not just a product for COVID, but it should be a product for beyond, for many industries to be able to use this product. And again, the next slide, I think we talked about some issues that were found in Health Canada had some complaints about face masks, and would the general public or whoever's wearing these masks be exposed to graphene particles? And yeah, like some other parties, we also went through rigorous testing with NanoSafe in Virginia, who could do some real-time monitoring of different exposure during different types of exercise or different activity, and they found that there's no graphene particles being ejected from the mask, so no one's going to be exposed to any of these particles. So yeah, now we've got over 17 certificates for these masks, going through several standards and several verification processes. So we're pretty confident it's a good product.
Yeah, I would say so, Steve. And not only did that testing you refer to show that there was no release of particles, the level of filtration was exceptionally good. And like you said, you have your ratings, your N95 ratings. But the other thing, if you look at some of the masks being used, often you'll see people and the mask doesn't really cover their entire face. There's gaps at the sides or the top and bottom. And, the Graphene Council is completely neutral. So what I say now is as an independent user, this is not an endorsement, but I've used these masks. And what I find is they have that exceptionally high filtration. They do allow you to breathe exceptionally well with that high level of filtration. But more importantly, it gives a really good fit, so you don't have leakage, which, if you have leakage, the effectiveness of the mask is degraded tremendously. So I think you guys have done really well with that product, and it shows, that the graphene also can be used effectively in that kind of application. And I think with that, as we come to the end of the hour, we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna say thank you to Thanuja and also to Steve. I want to thank you guys for your time and for sharing your expertise. On behalf of the Graphene Council, I want to thank everybody for participating and for your interest in this sector. Clearly, graphene has a very important future in healthcare applications, whether it be for devices, medical sensing, diagnostics, or even in some of the infrastructure of gowns and devices and elastomer products, etc., that can be enhanced with graphene. So with that, I want to thank you very much. Thank you for your interest in the Graphene Council. If you have any questions, if you need any guidance, if you need information, anything to do with graphene or any of the companies that you saw in the past 2 days, please reach out to us, and thank you for your time and attention.